So I told you that it's been a kind of different Sukkot. But I have to tell you that it's been the best Sukkot. It's been the best Sukkot for me. I've had quite a few. But in the midst of the best Sukkots, the reason it is because I can see the Lord working in such a way in the lives of people, and the communication and the relationship and the joy. Doesn't mean you don't have issues and problems and things that you have to deal with in life, but you're looking at them from a different perspective. You're looking at how to get through them with the right attitude and the right heart, rather than being overcome by those things. And that's good, because for the days ahead, these are the types of things that we're going to face. We're going to face challenging times to where these relationships that you guys are building right now are going to be the most important things that you ever will do in your life. Everything that's happened in your life has brought you to this point right now. And everything that you learn from this point forward is going to be what strengthens you for the days ahead. And we have a lot of things that are coming in the days ahead. I would be foolish to say I can tell you everything that's going to happen in the order in which it's going to happen, on the time frame in which it's going to happen. I'd be foolish to be able to do that. But what I'll tell you is that I think what we can do as a group, we can move in such a generalized way that we'll be able to recognize how we're moving together individually, in relationship to one another, as people, and also as a group collectively. Whether we're here, or whether we're in Oklahoma or California, or wherever you might be. And by the way, the crew, Aaron and Crystal Muir, they got back to El Reno safely. And so, thankful for that. And so, give the Father praise for that. Now, let's go back to Genesis. Let's go back to the beginning. If Isaiah chapter 45 tells us that God reveals the end out from the beginning, or 46, sorry. 46:10. If God says that He reveals the end from the beginning, then it'd be really good for us to go back to the beginning, wouldn't it? And if we go back to the beginning, we can probably learn a myriad of things if we'll just be sensitive and take it a little bit slower. Now, everything that we've worked on so far, up to this point, has been this concept of man being created in the image of God, and also made in His likeness. So let's go back to Genesis chapter 1, and let's look at verses 26 through 28. Okay? Genesis chapter 1, verses 26 through 28. There's a lot of things that we didn't cover in those first 4 chapters of Genesis, especially in chapter 3. I skipped a ton of things just for the sake of time. But hopefully you got enough thoughts to make you do some thinking. In verse 26, and God said, Elohim said, let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps upon the earth. So God created man in His own image. In the image of God created He him. Male and female created He them. And God blessed them, and God said unto them, be fruitful and multiply, and replenish the earth, and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over every living thing that moves upon the earth. Now, these verses, we can read these, and we can kind of look over them, and we can say things like, you know what? God created us in His image, and then we just draw the end of that. Well, the problem is that though man was created in the image of God, and in His likeness, when man fell into sin, then from this point forward, every man that was born was not born in the image of God anymore. They were born in the image of man. So when we pick up even the genealogy with Adam, we find, and born in his image were these children. And so now what we have is we have this problem. Because we have the image of man now here. And you'll say, well, what's the difference between the image of God and the image of man? Now, what the scripture tells us, James later on tells us that we are in the image of man, but we are after the similitude of God. Now that's a big fancy King James word. Similitude. We're after the similitude of God. And you say, well, what in the world does that mean? That means that we still have the same responsibilities that God created the image and the likeness to be. We still have that. But the problem is that now every single man, because man by choice decided to go for something that would make him better, then what happened as a result of that, now is he stepped away from God. Now what ends up happening to him is he bears this image that from this point forward we're separated from God in this unique relationship. And now we have these barriers and these things that are going to get in our way. These emotional things between a spouse, these are going to get in the way. The things with the earth, when man's working in it, that's going to get in the way. Rearing your children is going to be tougher than ever before. That's going to get in the way. And every single person that's born on the face of the earth is going to have this issue. But these are not excuses. These are actually causes to be even more focused on displaying the image and the likeness of God. Now, most of you are familiar with Deuteronomy chapter 30. So let's go there. And what I want to do is I want to just look at a few verses here. And I want to look at verses 11 through 14. In Deuteronomy chapter 30, verses 11 through 14. And I'm going to address this in the relationship between image and likeness. And we're going to move from this mindset of the physical man to the bride of Christ. For this commandment which I command you this day, it is not hidden from you, neither is it afar off. It is not in heaven that you should say, who shall go up for us to heaven and bring it to us, that we may hear it and do it. Neither is it beyond the sea that you should say, who shall go over the sea for us and bring it unto us, that we may hear it and do it. But look at verse 14. But the word is very near unto you, in your mouth and in your heart, that you may do it. 3 times he expresses to us, you can do this, you can do this, you can do this. It's not too hard. It's interesting. Tomas corrupted my mind earlier today when he gave me this CD, and I listened to it, and we listened to part of it on the way home, and then we listened to it all the way back in its entirety. And the one thing that the pastor was sharing on the CD was that nobody can keep the Torah. And it was never designed to be kept. It's actually too hard. It's impossible. Nobody can do it. However, you know what I found in the scripture? This is interesting. In not one place in the entire Torah, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy, nor in any of the writings, nor in any of the Tanakh as a whole, do you ever find that it was too difficult for the children of Israel to keep. But what we do find, and this is even in a fallen condition, okay? This is after sin. He says, it's not too hard for you to keep. But we always hear this idea that it's too hard to keep, that nobody can keep it. And Valerie pointed out to me, she said, well, wait a minute. Doesn't the scripture say that it's not too hard? And I'm going, that's right. And so you will find, and this is where you and I have the rubber meets the road. See, any time you and I choose not to be obedient to God, guess what it's caused by? Sin. My own choice. Right? Anytime I choose not to walk with Yahweh, it's not because it's too hard. It's because I choose not to. Or I choose to turn to something to rely upon outside of Him. Yes,
it's
Tony.
like the children of Israel. It was easy for them to follow the Torah. When they followed the Torah, they got blessings. Blessings made them wealthier, and they got stuff. And once they got stuff, they started feeling proud. Once they started feeling proud, they brought in idols.
And that's what
And that's when
Deuteronomy,
they fell.
and that's what Deuteronomy 32 is all about. You're exactly right. So the Jeshurun, he started waxing fat, he started kicking, he started taking for granted everything that the Father had given to them. They had progressed to a point of maturity, and then they started declining, didn't they? Yeah. It's not too difficult to do. Now, the question is for us, and I want to ask you, do you know the reason why you're here?
His plan,
What's that?
his plan,
His plan. Okay? And what is the purpose behind his plan?
to bring us back to him.
Okay? To bring us back to him. To just bring us back to him, bring us back to him? Or to bring us back to him how?
Like reminding us of his mighty hand, how he brought the children out of Egypt.
Great. Bring us back to his Torah. Good, his instructions.
Restore the original relationship.
To restore the original relationship. That's exactly right. Do you understand that everything that's going on in your life is for the sake of you being conformed back into this original image? Okay? Now, because of sin, we got a problem. We have these barriers that are blocking us, and we talked about those. Now the ground is not going to yield like it did before. Now the woman is going to have a difficulty in raising her children. There's going to be a mistrust in relationship between the husband and the wife. The husband's going to want her position as the easer, but the husband's not going to trust her. And these are things that we have to overcome. And these are things that we will overcome. By his grace, through the leadership of his Spirit, and it will be done. Because when we go over to Romans chapter 8, I'm going to look specifically at verses 28, and I'm going to go through verses 34. And I want to encourage you with these thoughts. So, Romans chapter 8. Everybody's familiar with verse 28, which is good, and we should be. We had a fun time with this morning in our 7 o'clock study. In fact, we had so much fun this morning, it was 10 o'clock before we were done. So, us prayer people, we didn't have time to pray, we were having too much fun. Picking one another's brains and throwing things out there that just make you go, holy cow, who is this guy and what is he sharing with us? In Romans chapter 8, verse 28, he says, "And we know that all things work together for good, to them that love God, to those who are the called according to his purpose. For whom he did foreknow, he also did predestinate to be what? Conformed to his image. Conformed to the image of his Son." Now this is going to be important, that he might be the firstborn among many brethren. Moreover, whom he did predestinate, them he also called. Those he called, he justified. Those he justified, he also glorified. What shall we say then to these things? If God is for us, who can be against us? What is God for? Well, he's for us, obviously. Okay, but what's he for? I mean, what did he just get done saying he's for?
For us to take his image.
To conform us to his image. That's what he's for. He's not just for you, like a cheerleader on the sideline. That's not what he is. He is actually for you, that you'd be conformed to his image. That's his purpose. That's his sole purpose, that you be conformed to his image.
That brings him joy.
That brings him complete joy. So the original image and likeness, with the desire to overcome chaos by order, and the actual ability to be able to do it, with the choice to be able to do it, is what he created man to do, both male and female. And so now, as a result of sin, we find that there are barriers before us. But yet, we find that God is for us to actually restore this relationship right here. So if God is for you, now the question is, who is he for? Yes, Jim.
Can I give you, just to give you more consistency to your, if you've been conformed, but you're not in his form, you've been conned.
Now, what have you been?
That's kinda like taking a text out of a context, huh?
It's gotta be consistent.
If you've been
If you're
conformed
conformed,
without his form, you've been conned. Which was a CD that I was listening to. Okay? And so now let's stop and think. Who is it that he is for?
Those children that are being conformed to his image.
Okay, and who are they?
The image he created us to be.
Okay, and who are they?
Those who he has called and chosen.
Okay, good, but,
Those who are walking in faith.
okay, now, let's go back to verse 28. Who are they? So Fantastico, you were saying, who is it? You summarized the whole verse, but I want to break it down just a little bit. So that you can recognize this isn't some letter that Paul was writing to guys a long time ago. This is for you. Now the question's going to be, is it you? Because not all things work together for good. But they do for those who love God. How do I know if I love God? I walk in His ways. I keep His commandments. That's exactly right. For those who love God and are what? And are called according to His purpose. And what's His purpose? Be conformed to His image. And who is pulling for you that this will happen? God is. And so if God is for us, then who can be against us? Well, I'll tell you who can be against you. Satan can be against you. The person sitting next to you can be against you. Your family can be against you. Your boss can be against you. The world can be against you. Flesh can be against you. Hollywood can be against you. Media can be against you. Everybody can be against you. See, he says, who can be against you? If God is for you, who can be against you? Well, everybody else. Everybody else is going to be against you. The question's going to be, whose side are you going to be on? Are you going to be on God's side and say, look, it's one against the world. I wonder who's going to win? Duh. Let's say it together. Duh. Duh. It's going to be that way. It's going to be one of those things where you go, duh, that's a no-brainer. God's for us, now you can be on the world side, but is the world going to be conformed to His purpose?
No.
No, because what do they not do? They do not love Him. Okay? So first of all, I'm not talking to everybody. I'm talking to those who love God. Okay, now it's time for you. Because I've been challenging you all week. Don't raise your hand. No, don't.
Some people don't know how to follow instructions.
So, how many of you love God? And don't raise your hand because then all of a sudden you're going to be committed. There was a baby. There's a baby in the house.
Oh, but it's my turn.
Gail, I'm not sure if everybody knows your daughter and your grandbaby.
I don't know your daughter.
This is Katie. Is anyone sitting in this chair right there?
No.
What's that? Yeah, it's a big grace time.
Your baby's adorable. How old?
5 weeks.
That's 2, 6, 4 here.
Moves out to the baby again.
My name's Brady. That's Brady.
Congratulations, your mom.
they're yours.
That's what you gave us.
Sorry.
How you doing, Mommy?
I'm good.
Doing good. You look great. You're welcome. How's your baby?
I'll let it run.
So fresh.
Amen. Praise the Lord.
Okay.